Thanks for everyone joining us online. We're still just checking in a few folks who are attending in person. For everyone who is online, you are automatically checked in by joining the Zoom link, so you don't need to share your ID or anything like that. For folks, I know there's some folks saying, I can't hear. We were just talking amongst ourselves. We haven't yet officially begun the presentation yet. So thanks for your patience. We're just checking in a few other folks online. But thanks for being here. We'll get started in just another minute.
Welcome everyone, both in person and online. Emily will let me know if I need to adjust my volume or get closer to the mic. Let us know if you can't hear anything on those who are joining virtually. My name's Alyssa Best. I'm a career advisor in the main career center, which is physically located one floor below where we are right now. If you've never been to our office and want to stop by, that's where we are. I serve a bunch of different demographics in the across campus. In terms of students and recent alumni, I work with the College of Arts and Sciences and the School of Education student population. And then I also serve as an alumni advisor for students who are more than 1 year out from graduation in the College of Arts and Sciences and School of Education, as well as School of Public Affairs and School of Communication. So there's a fun variety of individuals that I get to work with, and the theme of networking and how to talk about yourself and how to approach employers at networking events like our Job and Internship Fair event next Wednesday is always a question that is on people's minds. So excited to work with you all today. And the style of the presentation, I'm going to give some tips and tricks, and then give you all some time to write out a bit of a kind of a Mad Lib script where you get to fill in and create your own elevator pitch, and then you'll get a chance to practice your elevator pitch to our with our staff, who will be posing as employers and doing a mock role play in advance of the Job and Internship Fair next Wednesday. Which, as a reminder, that's next Wednesday, the 27th, from 1 to 4 in Vendor Arena, which is the sports arena. It's connected to this building across the bridge. And that's something where actually while I'm thinking of it, sometimes I have students say, oh, I can't get there right at 1. Is it okay if I come late at 2? And I say, no, it's not about coming late. We just have it open. You don't have to, there's no expectation that students, in fact, we wouldn't want all students to arrive right at 1 o'clock, because that would be, I think, too much for the employers to have. We want, the intention is that people will kind of trickle in at various points around your schedule. So I did want to just point that out, because if that's something that you were concerned about, that's come as early or as at any time that you want during the day, and stay for as long as you'd like. So hopefully after today's workshop, you will feel more confident and capable of approaching different tables and talking about yourself and engaging different individuals with questions that you have as well. So we're mastering your elevator pitch. So the first question that may be on your mind is, let's unpack this jargon, this phrase, elevator pitch. What do I mean by that? It's a 30 to 90 second narrative story, essentially. The purpose is to get the attention of a recruiter, a hiring manager, or a potential professional connection. The purpose is also to start a conversation. So the reason that it's called an elevator pitch is, imagine you're riding an elevator with a person and you have a limited amount of time to impress them. what would you say? So if you're imagining you're going up, you really have that short 30-second amount of time to grab, to grab their attention and to kind of boil down the essentials of what you might want to communicate to them. And I've had situations like this where I've popped into an elevator and there's been some kind of exchange where I've had to like quickly communicate something about what I do in a short period of time. So it's good practice, no matter what the scenario may be. So when might you use an elevator pitch? The first one is what we're gearing up for next week, our Job and Internship Fair on the 27th. Also, employer meetups, networking reception, informational interview. An informational interview is a one-on-one career chat where you are speaking with an individual, someone who works in a field that may interest you, to ask them questions about their career path, what advice they might have for you as a college student, or I don't know if we have any recent alumni in the room or on the call as well. So it's essentially a way for you to interview them. It's not a formal job interview. It's more of a fact-finding mission, or a way to gather information and clues and insights from someone who works in the field or is studying for the field. It might be, for example, if you're thinking about a graduate school program or law school, speaking with a student who or a recent graduate of that program to get their insight about what it's like. And then finally, conferences or presentations. I know the AU hosts, and other schools will host research-based or academic conferences and other types of events where you might hear a guest speaker come in. It may be also when you have in class. I know a lot of professors here invite industry professionals and employers to come in and speak to you in your classes. And it might be that you meet someone in your class that you think, or you see someone speaking, this person was very insightful, very interesting. I'd like to go, connect with them. And that may be another opportunity where you introduce yourself and have kind of a quick elevator pitch. So the key attributes of an effective elevator pitch are targeted at your audience. So what I might be, the information I might communicate with, you're going to communicate different information at the career fair, for example, next week, than you might with a professor or with a fellow classmate, right? So it's going to be tailored to the person or the type of person you're speaking to. Keep it short and sweet and interesting. And we'll talk about ways to spice it up with some interesting details. Stories. So our brains like narrative. It likes to, we make meaning through storytelling, right? And so even short stories can be memorable. So thinking about specific details, thinking about offering context, and illustrating with examples is so much more effective than speaking about something in more generic terms. So one way to think about this is you can organize your pitch around your past, present, and future. To be connected to goals, for example. So you can kind of go chronologically. You can keep it short, 3 to 4 sentences about, with the story having a beginning, a middle, and an end. And you'll see some examples of this when you get a chance to practice. Another time cue that I sometimes will recommend is that you can organize your pitch around kind of actually going like present, then past, and future. So what that might look like is I'm currently a sophomore studying psychology, and in high school I was involved in theater and did volunteer work at a local humane shelter. In the future, I'm interested in potentially going into into a counseling role. Maybe doing something with like art therapy or theater, something like that, right? So you can kind of connect, and you can kind of rearrange the order a little bit if you like. It depends on what you might want to communicate. So some things to consider here. Okay, here we go. In designing your pitch, who you are just as I modeled right there. But I forgot to say, I didn't say my name there, but sharing your name. If you have a major or minor, or what you made for those who have not declared or who may be transitioning in between, like, okay, I started off in this particular school, but I'm thinking about switching. I was just talking with a student yesterday. Started as a I think a communication major, and recently switched to psychology, and like kind of thinking through what to potentially minor in. So also could be what interests you if you haven't declared. Your relevant experience, work, internships, extracurricular activities, like I was mentioning, volunteer work, community service, accomplishments, your relevant goals, what you hope to do next or what you hope to do soon. And then in addition to the verbal information you're sharing, thinking about the nonverbal. So maintaining good eye contact, having a slow and clear delivery, enthusiasm. I would also say here I guess maybe more than verbal, but at the fair next week, it's going to be, imagine a big expo. It's a loud event. There's a lot of people, there's a lot of conversation. So also speaking up, having your volume be up enough so that you can hear each other as well. It's not quite as loud as like being at a concert, for example, but you're gonna have to likely speak with a raised voice. So that's another thing to consider as well, making sure the person can hear you. When you have a chance to practice with us in a few minutes, you'll get to practice some of the nonverbal, which is just as important as the verbal as well. Any questions so far? Yeah.
In those 30 seconds, there's a tendency for natural conversation to arise from those 30 seconds that are going unintentionally beyond the scheduled 30-second time frame. Should you make an effort to restrain said conversations from happening? I'm in elevators more time than I probably can count. And you do meet even students on those rides up and down. How do you go about, if they have to get off a floor, going about restraining prolonged conversation?
Okay, yes, thank you. And I'm going to repeat the questions back for closer to the mic for those joining virtually. And I also wanted to add, before I repeat that for anyone who is joining virtually who has a question, to put that into the chat, and Emily will make sure she's moderating, will share any questions with me as well. So the question is, I suggested like a 30-second kind of timeline just to help you kind of frame thinking about what you might want to communicate. But what happens if you start off saying, so maybe using an example, like I'm a sophomore studying psychology, and you had more things you were planning to say, and the person's like, I studied, kind of not maybe interrupts, but like kind of gets excited and says, I was also a psychology major, and kind of the conversation goes in a different direction. So the question is, do you kind of roll with it, or do you try to get back to your original script? Am I capturing that?
Yes, correctly? You don't want to say, excuse me, sir, but being on my floor is more important.
Right. I think, and I mean, this all, of course, might be context specific, where sometimes sometimes we'll take the elevator right out here, up and down. So I'm coming in a tunnel and going up to the 5th floor, for example, or even coming up here for an event. And I did run into a student the other day, and I said, a student that, a former student that I taught, and we also offer career development courses to undergraduate students as well. And in addition to our, our one-on-one advising and employer events and everything that you're in the workshops and presentations that you're experiencing right now. And my student said, I got an internship. And I was like, that's fantastic. Where, and then she told me, I think it was Department of State. And I was like, that's great. And then I was getting off my floor, and I was like, message me more details, because it was one of those things where we really only had like 10 seconds to have that exchange. Right now, that was someone I knew already. So it of course depends on if you're trying to meet someone, new. I mean, one thing we would recommend for next week is a lot of it, you know, picking up literature, picking up business cards. So if you are interrupted or another individual comes up to the table, which likely happens, you can always try to continue the conversation if there's, you know, if there somehow became kind of disrupted in that way. I think, my main recommendation would be just to kind of, I think, go with the flow. I think for you, if there are things to kind of track, I wanted to also communicate, say if you're talking, so this example, say you're talking to like the Humane Society of America or ASPCA, and you wanted to share, you're about to say something about, I have volunteered doing, you know, like animal welfare in the past or cat rescue group, and that got cut off. You can just sort of make a note of it and then sort of try to swing back to it, because clearly that's why you're maybe talking to that, you know, the person at that table. So you're wanting to tailor your comments. But yeah, I think that I would just encourage you, while being practiced and prepared, not to feel like it's a script that you have to follow, you know, just like with kind of let the fluidity of the conversation unfold. Does that sync up with what you're kind of what you're thinking?
Yeah, thank you.
And we did have a question in the chat. How do you do all of that in only 90 seconds?
Okay, that's a really great question. Yeah, so, and some, you know, these are suggestions, right? So I would say don't feel that you have to hit on all, you know, that you don't have to hit on like every single, you know, you don't feel like you have to regurgitate what's on your resume, for example. So I think it's about selecting, I think certainly, I think the must-haves are definitely your name. I think an area of study is definitely, or what you may intend or thinking about majoring in, I think would be a must. I think that, and then perhaps something, and maybe taking something in this category, and then that maybe kind of take you to that first part, and then the person may have some follow-up questions for you, and then you might be moving in the direction of what you hope to do, which is what brought you to the career fair, for example. That you may be doing some exploration as you're considering a spring internship, so you're curious about opportunities they have, or you might be gathering information now to plan for in the summer. I was noticing at the beginning of the semester, a lot of students who were already thinking about getting ready for a summer internship, which usually this is pretty early to be thinking about that. And I was impressed that they wanted to do preparation for that. And I said, this is a good time just to kind of figure out what are some places that you would be interested in, and come to our career fair to talk with people and get some ideas. And one of the analogies I like to use with career exploration and jobs and internship and job searching is to think of it like a treasure hunt. So you're out there collecting clues. And so just as you're collecting clues, as you learn about other people and their backgrounds, this is an opportunity for you to share a few clues. But don't feel, I think, perhaps that you have to hit on all these things in that first round introduction. Any other questions from either this room or the virtual space?
Nothing online.
And as we get a chance to practice, it may become more apparent what you want to communicate as well. So this is leading us to kind of an ad lib, or not ad lib, a mad lib. Could be an ad lib, a mad lib ad lib. And we have a handout that I'm going to pass out in a moment, but to get you all a chance, and then for those joining virtually, Emily is going to pop that document into the chat. Here is a way of kind of walking through. Hello, my name is blank. I am a villain, pick from this list. A sophomore. I don't want to keep it, but I'm just going to keep using my initial example as my refrain. I'm a sophomore with studying psychology. I'm interested in a career in blank or a position in blank in the blank field or industry. I have been involved in developed skills in. I've also had a position as a blank list. As I'm reading this a lot, I'm realizing this would feel like very robotic to try to So I'm not suggesting that you need to try to memorize this and repeat this, but this is just giving you an idea of what are the things perhaps that you might be able to select to talk about yourself? If you're struggling to come up with, what would I say? Like, what would I hit on? What would I pick up on? One thing I can guarantee you that all of you have something really interesting to share, because that's what makes the AU student population so special, is people come in, with so many, having done so many interesting things in high school, are getting involved with lots of interesting things here on campus, are studying fascinating topics, are working on like really cool special projects in your classes, gaining a lot of fantastic practical skills, technical skills, soft skills, digital skills. So I know that you all have many things that you could pull from, and that's part of the challenge too, I think, is how to narrow it. So,
and we do have a couple questions online. So do you recommend looking at job postings before you approach the table, or going there and asking the representative for opportunities?
I think I would say the latter, which is because we do recommend taking a peek at the list of employers. I just heard this morning we're up to over 110 employers. So when you RSVP and Handshake, you can see the list of employers and get a feel for who's coming. I think it would be difficult to take to fully research what postings they have, unless you see in particular, I mean, like across a lot of different, across more than just a few. I think it would be difficult to track that. With that said, if a dream employer, if a wish list employer is coming, you could absolutely click on their on their profile and Handshake, see if they already have some positions listed, and then you could, that may empower you to feel that you've got some more information to ask at the table. But I think that otherwise I would just use the opportunity next week to go up and learn more at the event. And then that might spark your interest to then review a job posting or internship posting, either through Handshake, or they may have, handouts there at the career fair, and then either decide to take action or not going forward.
Then another question about relevant experience. How does someone with only work experience in accounting and finance trying to change careers to analytics talk about experience related to the new analytics job, if they haven't necessarily had that yet?
Yeah. So I guess with that question, if I would maybe want to know follow-up, has this individual taken analytics courses or learns any technical skills that they could speak to? So I think I often work with individuals who are looking to pivot from one type of sector to another, especially when I'm working with either graduate students or alumni who are a little bit, somewhat further out from graduation and have maybe built some experience in one area and then they want to switch. You often with that, that individual may have taken a course, or maybe looking to take some kind of training, gaining like a technical skill, like data analytics, for example. So even if they haven't worked in that role yet, if they can speak to any skills that they have gained that are relevant, or also looking at their transferable skills or what they have learned in accounting and finance, because I imagine those are fairly adjacent fields. It's not, for example, saying like I'm going from accounting into like becoming like a pastry chef, right? Which might be require a little bit more maneuvering to show how one kind of one skill set transfers to another.
Great. And then the last question for right now in the Q&A, at what point in kind of this pitch or in talking to an employer should we ask if they sponsor international student visas or candidates, if at all?
I may look back to my colleagues for a moment. Do we have that featured in
yes,
Handshake already? Right. Yeah.
In the Career Fair Plus.
The Career Fair Plus app.
I'll show if they sponsor OPT, CPT.
Okay. So just to repeat what Emily said, that in the Career Fair Plus app, which we recommend that you download in advance and use as to help you with the fair next week, it will indicate whether the employer will sponsor OPT or CPT. That way you already will know that information as you approach a table. It's a great question. That's what I thought that was the case, yeah.
And then another one. Okay, similar to previous, a couple questions ago, how can a student with only a finance background approach accounting positions? I think similar, what sort of cross experience does someone have?
Mm-hmm. I think, so someone with a finance, let me just repeat this. How can someone with a finance background approach an accounting?
Yeah, for accounting
positions. I think I would encourage that individual to, or for any of you who have something that's related, but maybe is not kind of exactly the type of major that the employer is looking for. I would focus on any transferable skills that you have, any technical software platforms that would be used in accounting, for example, any accounting principles that you've learned, any relevant courses that you've taken that would be related to that, to the field or the type of role that you're looking for. Any other questions? Anyone here in the audience? Before?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Sure. So I know we should have like resumes ready to go for the job fair. But should you like have a copy of our cover letter as well, or like just resumes, and then we'll like send them later?
So to repeat the question is, should the student knows that they should bring resumes. The question is, would it be recommended to also bring a cover letter?
Yeah.
We would say no to that for a couple of reasons. One, the cover letter should be tailored to a specific.
Yeah, I meant like preparing specific ones ahead of time and like handing them in.
Oh, preparing. Okay, so follow up clarification, preparing a specific cover letter in advance so if you saw, for example, like X employer is hiring for X internship, actually writing a cover letter to bring.
Yeah.
I would recommend still, I think, first of all, love the proactiveness on your part. And I think that's fantastic. I would still say no, hold off on that, because instead I would go and use the opportunity to go up to the employer at the fair, learn more about be on this fact-finding mission, right? Learn more about what they're looking for, and then because you would have had a fairly good sense of that already, but use those insights to then influence the cover letter. They also would then, from practical component, in terms of like the application method piece, they also would likely refer you to their their handshake or to their portal, for example, to submit all the application materials. So I certainly wouldn't discourage you from, if you wanted to get a jump start on crafting a cover letter, that certainly would just probably that would probably help you finish that application faster, but it wouldn't be a prerequisite, I think, going into the fair. I wanted to also ask anyone who's joining in person or virtually, before we practice the Mad Lib exercise, has anyone had a successful experience or not so successful experience that you want to share? So, doing an elevator pitch and letting us know how it went?
Yeah. Yesterday, so I was at a coffee shop and I was with a friend talking about friend things, and I had heard the person next to me talking about, careers and internships and job seekings for however they're seeking jobs. And I found that their advice was useful on how they were going about it. They're a senior at George Washington University, and this naturally comes out of me, but I waited till they were done talking to their friend that they were currently talking with, and I just said a simple hello, and I was like, hi, I'm practicing it now.
Yeah, please do.
You know, I'm Tamara, I'm a junior at American University. I'm, in my case, a dual degree in international relations, public relations, and strategic communications. And I thought the words that you were conversing among were really intriguing to me. I would love to take part in the advice you were sharing and participate in engaging with your knowledge. Now, that's probably way more sophisticated than
This is what's great about practicing is it gets better, it's good, but more and more refined.
yeah. And he was very happy to connect. We exchanged emails, and now I have a senior at George Washington University, a student that is able to help me with my career prospects.
That's fantastic. Oh my God, Brad,
And I think
that's
it
amazing.
definitely you have to go beyond the awkward and understand that DC, there are no strangers.
Yeah.
You are your own stranger if you think there are strangers.
I love that. Yeah. And I find that too in you know, in just kind of navigate, you know, like bumping into people that I know, like in in the neighborhood where I've lived for the last 15 years, you know, there's same thing. Like it's like small world. It's like, you know, big city, small world, I feel like. So I love that. Yeah. And I'm sure that person was also thinking about it from their perspective. If someone approached you and said, wow, you know, you seem like you've got something really cool to share. I'd love to get your insights. That's extremely flattering. You know, when people are basically like, you seem smart. I want to know more. I want to soak up your knowledge, right? You know, like that's extremely, extremely flattering to the individual. So I always like to point that out, that this is a mutually beneficial exchange, right? This is a two-way, this is a two-way street. The employers are coming next week, and that we always invite, you know, to campus or to interact with you in all kinds of different forms. They're rooting for you. They want to get to know you. They want to, you know, what makes you unique.
I guess from what I understood with my engagement with Career Center so far is people do like to talk about themselves, and they will take every opportunity to share their story and share what their experiences are.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. Absolutely right. Amongst my fellow Career Center staff and multiple career centers in the room, before we do this exercise, is anything else would anyone like to add in to things that either I missed or to chime in on anything? Because we have a wealth of expertise in the room. Let me just see. Let me advance this. Did we get sample from it? Okay, this is just the last bit.
I'll just add one tiny
Yes.
thing with that. You did great, and just your point about, you know, bringing, somebody had asked about bringing a printed cover letter. I work in the I think that is super proactive and a great idea, but I agree with Alyssa that it would be great if you have something drafted, but you're not bringing it in paper, because then you can go and lead off with, it was great meeting you today, you know, especially if they're in the ability to hire you, or if another hiring manager reference like, oh, I met this person today, then they know that you're really interested. So just a tiny note, but don't bring the cover letter to the fair, but reference your experience at the fair.
That's right. Thank you. That's right. Yes, and that's something that a way to tailor the cover letter too is to and that helps you stand out because it may be the person that you meet next week may be reviewing cover, but it also could be that another staff member is reviewing the cover letter. So if you're saying, you know, I direct it to, you know, dear Alyssa, it was so, you know, it was lovely to, you know, meet with you at the, you know, and then if for example, if it's not me who's reviewing that letter as the first individual, someone else would be like, oh, they met Alyssa, this is great, right? So it just makes that solidify that connection. So I'm going to pass out we've got pens if anyone needs pens too. Should I just leave them? I'll just kind of leave them up here if you want to feel free to grab the pen. Some of you may have some with you, and then probably didn't grab it. So this is just for you to work on your faithful pitch. And then why don't we spend a few minutes on this, and then you'll have a chance to then work on it with us around the room.
And for folks who are joining us online, I just
Right.
added the elevator pitch worksheet to the chat. So make sure you download and save that. You can go ahead and start working on your pitch. And if you have any questions as you're working through that sheet, don't hesitate to either type them in the chat or the Q&A. And in the meantime, there is one question in the Q&A that I'm going to relay to Alyssa for her to answer just right here. So if an employer I meet at the fair only has full-time opportunities for someone with a master's degree after master's, but not summer internships, can I apply to them too? I will complete my studies at AU in 2025. So when is the right time to apply?
Let me reread that. Let me see.
And Sai, I apologize if I'm saying your name incorrectly. Alyssa's going to type her answer in the chat. And in the meantime, while everyone's working on their elevator pitches, I'm going to go ahead and mute the audio. If you see us talking, we're talking amongst ourselves. But again, feel free to ask any questions in the chat or the Q&A. Okay, and so there is another question from online that I just want to make sure to relay for Alyssa to answer. For the I'm looking to section, should we be talking about internship goals or goals beyond internships, such as job placement?
What you hope to do next.
You are unmuted, so
Unmuted or muted?
you're unmuted.
Unmuted, yeah, I know. It's, I think I'm just thinking aloud. Repeat the question one time.
Sure. So for the I'm looking to section, so maybe talking about future, should we be talking about internship goals or goals beyond the internships, such as job placement?
I think it could be either or both. I think that I certainly work with a number of students who are not sure what their career goals are yet, and that's why you're here at AU, why you're also engaging with the with career center services as well, and thinking through different options and possibilities. So it sounds like the question is, would you speak to your short-term or your long-term goals? I think if you have a sense of what the long-term, even if it's somewhat vague, you could certainly speak to that and then talk about how your short-term goal, like if someone's interested in, for example, in perhaps going into climate justice policy issues after graduation, then you could talk about that long term and then use the short term to say, the internship, this internship at the EPA would be, a great step along that particular journey, right? Could make it a little bit more specific than that. But if you're not sure what your longer term goals are, I think it's also fine just to focus on a short term goal. Do folks need another minute or so, or how's it going with the worksheet? What's this? Is this a helpful way just to get some thoughts down on paper? Yeah. Sure.
I guess I'm just realizing that a few days ago, I got a design program at SBA to do a BA MS in just quantum ecology. How do I speak? I'm a junior at AU, but I just got accepted into it.
Yeah. First, congratulations. I think the way you described it just now is, is right on. Yeah, I think just to say, I'm pursuing a combined, combined program that links where you'll be, as you said, an accelerated master's program. John, do you have another?
I was working with a student in a similar SBA dual program the other day, and so some of the coursework has already been begun, right? Some of the coursework being taken now is going to count towards the master's. So in that case, I said, yeah, but put it down. Sometimes if you haven't started something, we'll tell you don't put it down yet. But in this case, I think it's fair to say that it has begun. Now, I'm not sure exactly in your case, but soon enough, I would encourage you to put that master's down.
I think what it sounds like you're getting at is, do you describe yourself as a master's student, for example, or but then it also seems like it's not accurate to just describe yourself as just an undergraduate student as well. So it's like trying to find that fusion, right?
Yeah. I'm pursuing a BA MS.
Right. Mm-hmm. That's great. So the final reminder, don't forget about customizing your elevator pitch when you talk to different people. Do your research, which is kind of going back to, as I said, all the list of employers are in Handshake, are in the Career Fair. That's a tongue twister. The Career Fair Plus app, so you can get to know who's going to be there next week and think about who you want to talk to, because it would be. And it would be doable, but it would be challenging to try to talk to all 110 plus 111 employers that are going to be there. So we recommend figuring out who's your top 10 that you want to talk to, The tables will be set up alphabetically, so that's how you can navigate. Yeah, and we will have maps as well as maps in the app, as well as print out maps of where different employers are placed around the arena floor. So that way you can go in with a game plan. And we will also have a student resource table that is so if you're feeling like you need to take a beat, or if you're feeling kind of disoriented, you're feeling nervous, or you're feeling excited because you want to tell us about what this great conversation you just had, the various career advisors will be staffing that table, and that'll be when you walk on the arena floor.
What was the name of that app?
Career Fair Plus app. Do we want to pull up an image of that, or share that after the event?
So the question was, what was the name of the app that we recommended? It's called Career Fair Plus. I'm happy. I'm going to share a link in the chat, and I'll bring up a QR code we can share it with the room for in person. We are hosting 2 prep events tomorrow as well, and our presenters are going to go into more detail about the app too and how to use it. But I'll definitely share that information with you.
I want to give you all a chance to practice before we do it. Any other questions? Emily alluded to, we have a lot of events between now and next Wednesday that will continue to break down different components of the prepping for the fair. I mentioned, touched briefly on resume, for example. We have virtual resume stations, as we call them. Basically you can drop in virtually on Monday, in person and downstairs in the tavern on Tuesday to get any last minute feedback on your resume. We are also encouraging people to not wait till Wednesday at 12 o'clock to print, or even Wednesday morning to print your resumes, because apparently that has crashed the system in the library. So come to our events on Monday and Tuesday in particular if you want some resume support, and then make it a point to try to get those, whatever number you feel like is appropriate for Tuesday, and have it printed out maybe by Tuesday night would be our recommendation. And then so our next portion is we're going to do some mock role play. We'll be playing the part of employers, and you can come up, and we have a passports kind of scavenger hunt type thing where you get stickers as you, or not scavenger, more of a treasure hunt, where you'll get a sticker. Everyone likes a sticker, yeah, right? I say I need to go around with like my gold stars, right? For each table that you go up to, and so that way. And what is it? Practice 3, and what do we have kind of drop it off to?
Yep, and drop it off for Career Center prize. And for folks online, this is kind of the end of our presentation, so I'm going to go ahead and put us back on mute so you don't hear the ambient room sounds. But you're welcome to submit questions in the chat or Q&A, and we'll make sure that Alyssa or one of our advisors are answering those via text. So thanks for joining us today. If you have any questions, you can try to squeeze in an appointment with a career advisor from now until the fair next Wednesday. But we hope to see you at some of our other upcoming job fair prep events. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Emily. And then, so we've got tomorrow